Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's session, Advantage Business System Solving Care Home Subscription Billing Challenges. So Advantage is transforming finance operations for care providers, and the subscription billing can be a major headache for care homes. So from handling recurring changes and funding splits to ensuring accurate invoicing across multiple residents and funding bodies. My name is Gary Griffin. I'm one of the senior account executives at Advantage. On the call with me today, I've got Ben Rogers, who's going to be taking you through today's demo. So if you have any questions, please pop them in the question box. We'll get to them right at the end. But for now, Ben, over to you.
Thanks, Gary. Hi, everybody. My name's Ben. I'll take you through the workshop, the demo today. Like Gary said, any questions, just please save them for the end. Expected it to be maybe 40-45 minutes. It's quite a lot to get through, so we'll see how we go with the time. I'll just turn my camera off before we start and we'll go straight into it. Okay, so the first thing just to talk about in terms of the setup, so we've called it a care home billing solution, so you'll see these care home references. So in terms of the setup, we'll just start with the care home billing setup. Very, very simple, a few fields. I'll come back to these as we go through so they make a bit more sense, but we've got a calendar, so we've got a default calendar set up in here. So we'll just open this up. And the reason we've got a calendar is the solution allows you to select bank holidays for a start, as a start point. So we've got Christmas Day, Boxing Day, etc. We've got any bank holidays in here for August, for May, etc., etc. And that means as part of the billing solution, you can exclude bank holidays when you run your invoices if you want to. It gives you that choice. So that's why we've got a calendar in there. Let's cancel that. We've got a negative adjustment description and a positive adjustment description, which you'll see a bit later on in the process. And these default descriptions into the billing lines when you're making adjustments for a positive increase or a negative increase. We've also got a default dimension code. This is a global dimension 1 at the moment, and the reason we've got that in there is the solution generates invoices for residents or people in care, and it also generates an invoice for a local authority or a funder. So there's two separate kind of invoices generated. And the way the solution works at the moment, which is a request from one of our clients, is that when you generate the authority invoice or the funder invoice, you can default global dimension 1 from the person in care or the care home resident. So it's just a little default that we've put in there to pull from a different customer card, which I'll show you as well. And we've also got some deferral functionality as well in here. So if you're creating invoices that span over more than one financial period, you can also default and calculate deferrals to go into a different period as well. So there's just a few basic setups in there. And that deferral template is just set to 1 month at the moment for this example I'm going to show you, because we're only going to defer into one future month. And then we just got some number series set up as well. We've got a contract number series and we've got a consolidated invoice number series, which I'll show you as well. So very, very simple setup. The only other thing really in terms of getting things defaulted into the billing from a setup perspective are the care home charges. So if we open up the care home charges, I've set some examples up here. So these are the charges that will go into the billing lines when we create the contracts. So just some examples that I've created here for daycare, funded care, etc. You can default specific customers into these codes as well. So if you have a customer that is specific to a code and it's only for that customer, you can default a customer number in if you like. I've left mine blank. Unit of measure code, again, just standard BC functionality, days, hours, weeks, whatever you want to use. And then we've got a default GL account number. So when the invoice is created, it will look at the contract line and it will default in any GL code that is set against the care home charge line as well. And we've also got a VAT product posting group default. So if you want to set specific VAT rates or VAT treatment against specific charges that you're going to put into your contracts, you can do that here as well. And you can also do dimension defaults. So in this daycare line, I've got a business unit dimension and I've got a department dimension. So they're just my global dimensions 1 and 2. So you've got all that sort of standard functionality that you can put as defaults when you're creating these lines. So from a setup perspective, it's not much more to it than that really. And the rest is your kind of standard BC functionality. If I go into the customers, there are a few changes in the customer card as well with the solution. So if we just pick test customer number 4. Just for this specific iteration of this solution, a recent client we worked with, they wanted the global dimensions on the actual customer page as well. So you do get this as it stands with this solution. That's just saving you going into customer dimensions, basically. So you've got that on the front just to make it easier to drop those in there. And then this section gets added in. So we've got, it's called care home billing. Obviously this can change. It can be called whatever you want. The last customer we did this with, they wanted it called care home billing. And we've got 2 customer types. So we've got a people we support, which is essentially your resident or person in care. And we've got a local authority or a funder. So there's 2 different tags that you can put now in the customer card. So this particular customer is a people we support. There's extra reference fields on here as well. So if you've got a reference number, you can put that in there. This client that we recently worked with moved from Sage. They wanted a Sage reference number in there. So we've just dropped an extra field in there as well. And there's some other fields in here that we're not really using at the minute, but if you've got any discharges for that customer that you want to track, you can put a date in there. You can tag that they're the main contact as well. If you've got multiple residents in authority invoices, for example, etc., etc. So one extra little section has been put in there as well. So we can go now straight into the contracts. So we've got care home contracts here. I've added it in as a shortcut. So if we open that up, there's some that I've already put together, but we'll go for a new example now. So we're just going to come up and do a new one. And we've got our header section and our line section as if you were doing a standard invoice or whatever you might be doing as normal in Business Central. So the first thing we're going to do is pick my customer. So we'll use test customer 4. Again, it's called person we support. It's just for the iteration that we did for our recent client. That could be resident or whatever you prefer to call that. Then we've got some extra fields here. Now these are mainly for information and for reporting. So we've got a resident terms code, for example. I've just used some numerical examples, but that could be anything. So again, it allows you to group contracts by different parameters. So I'm just going to put a numerical code in there for this example. We've got an accommodation status code as well. I'm just going to use a long term, but again, this could be anything you want it to be, just to, again, group, tag certain contracts, however you need to. And then we've got an admission date. So I'm just going to put that this customer came into situ on the 1st of the 1st. And then we can tag them with an authority or a council or a funder. So I'm going to say in this example that this is Southwark Council. So Southwark Council are going to contribute some of the contribution for the invoices for this test customer. And then we've got, again, a date that we can fill in for the starting date of the local authority or the council. So I'll just do the same date. I want it 125. There's a tick box to say, yes, we've had approval that Southwark are going to fund some of this contract. So we can just tick that. Again, it's not going to drive any of the billing, but it just gives you some visuals and ways of capturing more information in the header as well. So you can leave that blank. If it's an ongoing contract in perpetuity, you can just leave that blank, or you can just put an end date on there. I could say, well, this is for a year. Again, it doesn't drive anything, but it allows you to do any further reporting, group contracts, analysis, that kind of thing. So that's the header section. Then we come down into the main body of the contract, and this is where we can start to add the lines to generate the invoices. So we've got, again, the 2 line types. We've got people we support, i.e. resident, and we've got local authority, stroke funder, stroke council, whoever's going to contribute part of the invoicing as well, or the billing as well. Skip over these 2 fields for now, and then we get to our bill to customer number. Now it knows obviously it's test customer number 4, so that's defaulted in already. And then we've got a few different charge type options. So we've got a comment, as you'd get in any standard BC line. We've got a one-off charge type, and we've got a recurring charge type. So the first one I'm going to use is a recurring charge type. And then I get into my charge number box, and this is the one I just showed at the start of the presentation, where we've got these various charges set up, assigned to GL codes, some VAT treatment, and some default dimensions, etc. So I'm going to pick daycare for the first one. And it will default to a quantity of 1. Now I'm going to leave that as 1 because we're going to generate an invoice for a month. So I want it to do all the days in the month. So I'm going to leave that as 1. We've got an extra couple of fields for further information. So if you wanted to add extra information to pull into invoices, you can do. You can put whatever you want in these lines. Just a couple of examples. Then again, our unit of measure will again pull from the charge type, which is a day. And then we can put in our unit price for this particular line. So in this example, I'll just say it's going to be £25 a day that the resident is going to get invoiced for this particular contract. And then our from date. Now that's not linked to these fields in the header. We could link that in. We could link that to the current funding date, etc. But at the moment, it's just left blank. So even though the contract is starting on the 1st, it may start on a different date. But to keep it simple, we'll just pick the same date as well, 1st of the 1st. There is an invoice to option. Now, again, if the contract's just going to continue and we want it to generate every month, we're just going to leave that blank. We don't need to put a to date in there because we want it just to carry on until such time we don't need that contract anymore. But we don't know when that's going to be, so we'll leave that blank. Then we've got days applicable. Now we've got different options here. I'm going to use all because I want it to do all the days in the month, but there's weekdays, weekends, Saturdays, Sundays, bank holidays, weekly period, etc. So lots of different options as to how you want the invoices to be generated. So I'm just going to tick all. I'll show this in a little while. So we've got exclude bank holidays. And again, where I showed you the calendar at the start, if you've selected bank holidays within your calendar and you tick this option, it will know to exclude the bank holidays if you're running the invoice in a month that's got bank holidays. So you can exclude and not bill for those days if you choose to. And then we've got a billing type. So we've got advance and arrears. So there's two different ways that you can tag a line. I'm just going to use advance for this one. And we've got a line ready. So we've got one line now that will generate an invoice for this customer. But because they're linked to a council and the council is going to pay part of this, they're going to contribute to the stay of this person in the care home. We're going to add a second line and we're going to make this a local authority line. So now when I go to my bill to customer, it's only going to find any customers that I've tagged as a local authority. So it won't list all the other customers that are residents effectively. So we're going to pick select council for this one. Again, it's going to be a recurring line and we can come and pick a charge number. And I'll just pick a different one. So maybe membership fees. Again, it's a day rate. I don't need to fill out those for now. And we'll just come across. And the council are going to contribute £15 a day for the stay of this particular resident. And I'll do the same date, 01/01/25. Again, I'll leave the invoice open. And it's going to be all days. And I'll make this an advanced line as well. So this is now ready to bill or create the invoices effectively. So I've added two lines, and because it's looking at this line type, it will generate two invoices. It'll do one for the customer and it'll do one to the authority or the funder that's been tagged as well into this contract. Now, as soon as I try go into home and I've got a create invoices credits option, as soon as I try and do that, it'll then bring up my date parameters. So this is a simple month example. So I'm just going to tag it with the invoice date of the end of January. And because the lines are advanced, as you can see behind me there, I'm just going to say the advance end date is also going to be the end of Jan because I want to just generate the invoice for January. And if I create it, it's going to error because I've got to release the contract. So this functionality has also got workflow built into it. So I've disabled it, but if you've got it enabled, you can just use a standard BC workflow to get the contract approved as well. So I've disabled that for the moment, but that functionality is available as well if you want to use the workflows. So I'm just going to release this one manually. And once that status is now released, I can now generate the invoices. So I'll come back to home and I can create invoices and credits. And it's just worth pointing out at this point as well, I'm doing this from within a contract itself. So if I just quickly come out of that contract, you can also then use the same function on the main contract page. So the idea being is once all your contracts are set up, you just come into the main contract page and you run all of the invoices in a huge batch from this window, but you can do them separately as I'm doing in this example as well. So you've got all of that functionality to do it en masse as well. So we'll come back in, go to home, and we'll click create invoices and we'll just run that for January. So that's now complete. So if I now go and look, just open my other session up to keep it a bit fluid. Just let that refresh. If I now come into my sales invoices, I've now got 2 invoices that have generated. So I've got one, as you can see, for the customer, and I've got one for the council. So because I've used a different parameter with a resident and a local authority, it knows that it's going to create 2 separate invoices. So I'll just quickly look in the customer one. There's my invoice, and it knows it's from the 1st of Jan to the 31st of Jan. Again, there's my GL code, descriptions, VAT treatment, and there's the 31 days that it's going to generate for January as well. And you'll notice as well, the dimensions have defaulted in from the line. So where I've set the charge up with default dimensions, that will supersede anything else, and that will populate the lines as well. So that invoice is now ready to go. Let's come out of that one, and the same with the Southwark Council. So exactly the same thing. It's another invoice for the 31 days. And again, it will just map to whichever charge line that I did. There's the 31 days, and again, all the extra treatment will come into here as well. And what it's also done, as I mentioned earlier, it's defaulted the business unit code dimension from the actual customer, because I've got that set up. So Southwark Council doesn't have any dimensions set up. So if you wanted to, you can default to the funder or the council, whoever it is, you can default the dimension in from the resident that it's related to, which is what it's done here as well. Okay. So I'm going to delete these 2. I'm not going to post them, so I just want to now move to showing something else. Okay, so we go back to the contract. So as those invoices haven't been posted, I can change these lines, because it's, as far as the system's concerned, they're still open. So once you've invoiced or you've processed and posted the invoices, you can't amend the existing lines. But I will be able to do that now, because I wanted to just show something else. So I'm going to come in and do a 3rd line. And this time I'm going to do a weekly line, because not only can you do monthly billing in this, you can also do weekly invoicing as well. So I'm going to do a daycare line again. And I'm just going to put a reference on here that this is weekly invoicing. Just change that to week. And if it's a weekly line, I'm now going to put in the weekly amount. So let's say it's £200 for this line. And this is a situation that we've worked with a couple of clients where their invoicing is not always a full month. They actually start mid-month, or they start mid-period. So an example would be this weekly invoice is going to start on the 6th of the 1st, 25. And it's going to work in a 4-week cycle. So a 4-week cycle, if you work it out from the 6th of the 1st, is going to go to the 2nd of February in this example. So instead of using the or function, I'm going to actually use a weekly period on this line, because I want this to generate an invoice for 4 weeks. And I'm going to change the billing type to arrears. And what that means is, it just means that when I run this, I can just use 2 different parameters to generate the different invoices, as I'll show you in a second. Now, I don't want all of those on the same invoice, because I want the monthly invoice separate and I want the weekly invoice separate. So over here, we've got an option to separate the invoice. So I can tick that weekly line, and it will then know that I don't want that invoice to be tagged and grouped with this monthly invoice. So we're effectively doing 2 things here. We're generating a monthly invoice and we're generating a weekly invoice at the same time. So this time I come up to home and I go back to my create invoices window. Now, both the invoices are going to be dated in January, because they're both January invoices. It just so happens the weekly one starts on the 6th, but I want it to be tagged with the 31st of January. Now, because I'm going to use the arrears option, what I can then do is change my end date for that 4 weekly period cycle. So in this example, it's going to end on the 2nd of the 2nd, 25, because 2 days of it goes into the following month. And we've also then now able to bring this into play, the defer from to date. So in the billing setup window, I had a default deferral template. And what that enables me to now to do is say, if I start that from the 1st of the 2nd, 25, it will then generate part of that invoice to be deferred as well at the same time. So there's a few different date parameters I've now filled in there, but if I just click OK, and that's now complete. If I go back to my sales invoices, just refresh this. Go back in there. I've now got 3 invoices generated. So if we have a look at these, it's redone the monthly one because I deleted it the first time. So it's done that first one. It's also now done a separate invoice for me. So if I go into this one, you can see now this is actually a weekly invoice and it's 4 periods. So it's 4 weeks and it's generated £200 a week over 4 weeks, £800. And importantly, the dates are now the way I want them to look. So it's actually being invoiced from the 6th of the 1st to the 2nd of the 2nd. So there is a way through the solution, and this is something we've done with our recent client, that they have monthly and weekly invoices coming from the same contract. So it can handle that, just with slight changes in how the days applicable is selected, etc. So I've now got 2 separate invoices, which is what I wanted it to do. So I can now post these. And then again, it's generating my council invoice as well. So I'm just going to post these invoices. And I'll open one up so you can see the layout as well. So if we open up the posted weekly invoice and print this one off. Let's make that a little bit bigger. So there's a couple of invoice layouts that we've got built into the solution. So we've got a resident invoice and we've got an authority or funder invoice. So you can see this is now showing me it's got a customer relationship management tag on there because that's the department that I selected for my dimension. So it's telling me what the description of the dimension is, who the customer is, address details, etc. And it's showing me what the line's for. It's for daycare, it's for 4 weeks, and it's for the 6th of January to the 2nd of Feb. And I've got all of my calculations and my invoice layout all calculated as well. And then my details on the bottom. So all the dates exactly as I want to see them. For the weekly invoice, again, I can post the other ones. This is my monthly one. Open that one up and print this one. And again, 1st of Jan to 31st of Jan, same customer, just a different invoice split out. So they get 1 monthly invoice and they get a weekly invoice if that situation arises. That's that. And we've got Southwark Council as well. We can post, and again, it's just for the month, Jan to Jan. Let's post that one. And this is a slightly different invoice layout. Not much different, but it's got a tag for the actual resident or person in care that it's related to. So this is going to Southwark, but they know that this is for test customer 4. Again, membership fees, got the period on there, the quantity, unit of measure, the unit price, and the line amount. This hasn't got any VAT in it. It's just the way that this particular layout was asked to be done for us, so for the client. But again, easy to change, add VAT in, change these layouts, etc., etc. So there are 2 layouts built into the solution as well that we've developed for the different types of posting. So if we come back to the contracts, and I'm going to go into this invoice category customer. So I split that invoice out in that example with a month and a week. We've also built functionality in here, and this is an example using an invoice category. So one of the clients that we work with, they wanted to split the invoices using a category, and it can be anything. I've just got activities, housing, benefit, and travel. So it's just another sort of layer. It's probably the easiest way to think about this is it's almost like a dimension, I suppose, and it's just another way that you can sort of split these invoices out. So this is just, again, another standard customer. It's 1 contract, and it's the same 3 lines with just slightly different unit prices in. Again, it's for all the days in the month. It's just got a billing type of advance. But because I've tagged it with a category, as soon as you use these category fields, it will then split the invoices by those categories into separate invoices. So you've kind of got 2 levels. You've got that separate invoice option that can apply to anything. But if you want to tag them with an extra category, or almost like a fake dimension, if you like, or a dummy dimension kind of thing, you can use this as well. So if I now generate the invoice for this one, and again, I'm only going to use 2 simple filters because it's just an advance line and invoice date. I click OK. That's complete. Come back to my invoice window. I've now got 3 separate invoices. So it's the same charge, daycare, but because I've used a category, it's done 3 separate invoices for me. So I can then post these and they're tagged with that extra category. And this is something that was specifically done for a client that I'm working with at the moment. They wanted to just use that, and you can see it's got the category on there, so it tags it, and it just means they can then report at that level without having to use a dimension. They can just use that category. So again, we can just post those invoices and they're ready to go. And because of the way the solution works, once they're posted, this is January, when I run the billing again for this particular invoice, it'll just generate for February and so on and so forth. So it knows which period it's already invoiced and billed, and then you just move on to the next one. So if I come back into this contract now, contract 9, I'll move over to the right hand side here. You can see it's now tagged it with that date. So all I would then do the next month is come and create the invoices again. This time it's 280225, 280225, and it just goes and generates those invoices again for the next month, February. And there they are, posting date 28th of the 2nd. And again, I've got 3 invoices because it's used that invoice category line to do 3 separate transactions. And that we've also then developed it a little bit more. And when you run your age receivables reports, those invoice categories are now available as filters. So you can run your age receivable at that level as well. So if you wanted to do it at a certain category, you can do that, and it will just preview and run for that particular category. The latest iteration of this that I haven't installed because we only did it the other day, it does tag the category name on here as well in the header. So if it's activities, it will put activities at the top. It's not in this example, but it is in the solution because we've developed it since. And again, it's just split those customers out using that category that's assigned on there as well. And we've also put that in your standard filters as well down here. So if you're doing any standard filtering, again, it's not in this one at the moment, but the invoice category field is available in here as well for you to filter at that level as well. So we've also added that functionality into the age receivables reporting as well. Back to the care home charges, the contracts. And we will go into contract number 10, I think it is. So that's the invoicing side, etc., etc. So as you can see, it generates the invoices, all good. You probably noticed up here it says credits as well. So how can we do credits? Well, credits are quite straightforward to do as well. So this particular contract, you'll see we've invoiced it to the end of January. So I've done this one already. So we then get information that maybe we've invoiced it to the wrong customer, or we shouldn't have invoiced it for whatever reason. So how can we do credits? So credits are very, very simple to do in the solution. So we've got a functions line here. And if I stay on this people we support line, I've got an option to suggest credit lines. So as soon as I click that, what it does is you can see here it's added a credit line of -1, and it will just reverse out that entire line for me. Without me having to add it in. And you'll see here it's actually put the dates in as well for that period. So all I would then need to do is come in and create my invoices or credit notes. Let's put January's date back in there, click OK, go back to OK there, come out of the contracts, go into my sales credit memos, and it's now created a credit memo for me straight away. If I go into there, you'll see it's all the days. So 27, actually should be 31, but slight blip there. But it's generated a full credit note for the period for that line. If I delete that and come back into the contract, and again, I can delete that line because I've not posted that invoice. Go back to contract 10. Just remove that line. So that's a full credit for the full line. But you can also partially credit as well. So if I go to functions, adjust recurring charge. So this particular line, we've invoiced £30 to the resident or person in care. Now we find out it should have been less than that from a certain period in the month. So if we go to adjust recurring charge, the unit price should have been £25, let's say, from the 20th of January. So if I click OK now, what it will then do is put a credit line in, as you can see, for the 20th of Jan to the 31st of Jan, because I've said that £25 should have been applicable from the 20th of Jan. And it's added a second line of the £25 that it should have been, and it's going to start from the 20th of Jan. So it's generating a credit line for that particular period and adding a new line with the new rate that it should have been. And it's defaulted two descriptions in here as well: revised lower rate reduction and a revised higher rate reduction. And again, if I just go back to my Care Home setup, that is just defaulting from here. So you can actually default the description that you want when you're making adjustments online. So that's just picking those two fields up as well. Again, I could change those, but so you can partially credit as well. If you've invoiced and you just want to remove part of the invoice or credit part of it back, you can do that as well. So if I run this again now for January and then come into my credit memos, I've got a credit memo created, and what it will do, the solution, it will add two lines, as you can see. So you get the first line being credited out, that was £30, which we now know was incorrect, and we know it should have been £25. So it's just taking the difference, and it's going to give the client back £40 or 48 with the VAT, because we charged them too much by £5 for those 8 days. Okay, so it will work that out for you and process it through and make those adjustments. Just delete that again. Come back to the contracts. And again, I can delete these two lines because we haven't actually posted the invoice or the credit note. So that's two ways of adjusting. There's further options as well that we've baked into this as well. So if you've got a person in care or a resident that for any reason leaves the care home for a certain period, so we've got a discharge option. So if we click on discharges, here's one I did earlier, which is why you probably noticed that it was 8 days in that last example. It should have been actually 12 days, but I've already it's factored this in as well. So I've done two things at once. I should have done this separately, but that's why it wasn't showing 12 days, because it's doing this. So I've actually got a discharge in here. So I've said that this particular person, from the 28th to the 31st, they're in hospital. So we don't want to invoice them for that period. So we've then got a suggest credit lines option here. So we can click that, and it's going to add a couple of credit lines in there as well. So because I've got a person we support and an authority line, it's actually going to credit both of those invoices or both of those customers and that local authority. So it's going to add two credit lines in, as you can see, and it's going to just remove the charge for those periods, for the 28th to the 31st as well. So if we just create the invoices again, complete, come back in, check the credit memos. We've got two, so we've got one going to the authority or the council, and we've got one coming back to the customer. And again, if we just check what's in here, we've now got that credit note for the 28th to the 31st. So the 4 days correctly calculated, and we're just going to give the resident back £144 because they were not actually in the care home for those 4 days. So you can do that as well through the solution if needed. And just delete these to show you the final thing. And the final option we've got, just delete these two lines, is we've also got a replace authority or funder. So if again the authority or the council changes, so it might not be Coventry anymore, it might be Southwark or it might be Manchester or whatever, you can replace the authority as well. So we could say, well, the current one is Coventry and the charge that they're using was daycare. It's actually now going to be Manchester, and we could use the same charge, or we could change the charge reference, whatever, it might be that one. And again, we can say what date did that council change. So again, partway through the month, on the 25th of the month, the council changed. And again, we've got a couple of tick boxes here: replace the contract authority, add the credit lines, We click OK, and it didn't do anything. What did not do anything? There's always one thing that doesn't work. Okay, it does work. It worked before when I tested it, but yeah, that option will again do a bulk credit. It'll add a credit line. It'll add a new line for the authority as well. Maybe I'll come back to that if we have time at the end. I'll redo it. So those are the credit options. There's various options. You do it on the lines here. You can do it in bulk discharges, replacement authorities, etc., etc. You can also import lines as well. So if you wanted to import lines in bulk, if you've got multiple contracts to set up or multiple amendments, you can export a template out. Again, using standard BC functionality. Just open that up. And basically what they allow you to do is add all of your lines into this Excel file, and it will do it for multiple contracts. So you can do it for one contract, or you can do it for all. So if you've got 100 contracts, you can add in 100 lines across every contract reference, and it will put something into every single one. So you get basically all the contract line is replicated there. And this is useful for things like price changes as well. So you can overwrite lines, you can upload lines with new prices, day rates, and all that sort of stuff. So you can mass upload things as well through the solution. And again, you don't have to do that just for one contract. You can do it for all of them. And just probably the other couple of things that we've got in here as well as recurring charges, we've also got one-off charges as well. So if you pick a one-off charge, it might be something like, say, a physio appointment. Again, quantity of one, that'll be each, and that might be £50. And it will want you to select a specific date. So the physio is on the 20th of the 1st, 25. And when you're using the one-off, it will put an invoice to date in for you because it's assuming that only took place on that day. And it could be a hospital visit, it could be a taxi, it could be a hairdressing appointment, whatever it is. And when you generate the invoice, if I try and do all on there, it won't let me do it because it's a one-off. So so what it will do for the period that you're billing, it will do that and add that into the invoice as a one-off line. And then once it's invoiced, it's done, it's gone. But what these contracts do, as you'll see from some of the other ones that I've been playing around with, is it keeps a whole audit trail as well. So you can unhide and hide lines. So if something's been billed in full, you can actually hide it and it will only show you the sort of active lines. So anything that's gone, it does keep it in here. So you don't lose any of that history. So if you've got lots of one-off charges or whatever that have been previously billed, you can see all of that in here. You can see there's some here that I've fully invoiced, got some credits in there that have backed things out. And because they're credits, they're treated as one-offs for that period, as you can see. And then if you don't want to see them, you can hide them. If you do want to see them, just to track back and have a look, you can do that as well. And again, you can export these into Excel using sort of standard BC functionality too as well. So again, those one-off things will just process for that particular month in there as well. Other things that we've factored in for going to contracts, if you open your information pane and you scroll down, every line will tell you what account number it's going to as well, and you can see the VAT product posting group there as well. So whilst you'll see that in the charge number in here, you can also see it on the lines down here in the information pane as well. So we've added that little section in there just for a visual, so you know where it's getting mapped. If it's got a default VAT posting group as well, you know that that's visible as well in there. There's also errors. So if you've got errors, they're tracked in the main contract window as well. You can see I've got one error there. That didn't generate because there were some open invoices or credit notes that weren't posted. So it does track all of the errors as well, not only in the contract page, but within the contracts themselves as well. So if you scroll to the bottom, you've got an auditing section and it will tell you who the last person was to run the invoices. If there's an error, it will flag up in there and it will tell you the time as well and stamp it with the date and the reference of when that invoice was run to. So that's really sort of running the contracts. Now there's other things as well that we've factored into this, as well as that age receivables functionality. We've also developed a consolidated invoice. So the consolidated invoice, the clients that we've worked with so far, the authorities or the funders who might, say Southwark Council in the examples I've been using, they might be contributing to multiple customers. So we've developed this invoice that you can run in bulk. So if I go to consolidated invoices and we click a new one, so this is where I could select, say, an authority or a council. So if I select Southwark Council are contributing the funding towards a number of customers in the system. So they want to invoice just to look their own invoice for those different customers. So this enables us to do that. So we can come into add invoices, and these are all the different ones that we process for Southwark Council. And these might be for different customers because they look after so many customers. So we can just select, say, 3 invoices, select OK. It adds them into the lines, and then we can print this invoice and send this to Southwark Council. We can have a look at it, and they'll get one invoice for, you see, one's for Gary again, and one's for Jacob. So in a situation where you've got somebody funding multiple customers, they can get a consolidation invoice, and it will just put all the details of those different customers on the same invoice as well. So we factored that in to the solution because the clients that we've worked with wanted this, because that's how their business works. They have to send combined invoices, if you like, to the authority as well. And just a couple of other things that we've built into this as well. Go back to the contracts. If you're using end dates, you can see some of my contracts I've put end dates on them, some I haven't. But if you're using end dates as well, you can use a filter to look at contracts that might be expiring within the next, say, 10 days. So in the care home billing setup window, come in here. So I've put 10 in there. So what it will do, it will look at the current work date, which today is the 11th of November, and it will look at all contracts that are going to be expiring within 10 days of that date, or 10 days after that date. So anything that's going to expire on the 21st of November, it will pick up, it will look here, and then if you want to use this filter, it will then list any contracts here that are coming up for completion or renewal. So you can use that functionality as well to sort of track and just maintain, look at contracts that are coming up to their end date. If you're using end dates, you may not use them, may not be needed. But if they are, you can, that functionality is built in here as well. We've also got a bit like if you're using item lines, sales lines, we've got contract lines, so you can actually analyze all of the lines for multiple contracts. Again, these are all of the contracts that we've got active, and you can see every line in every contract. So again, you can even edit in Excel in this page as well. So if you wanted to edit in Excel and add new lines in, you can do that in bulk, open in Excel, etc., etc. And when you use that import function, this is where you can import everything in Excel, and it will just populate all the lines. So you do get that visual as well of analysing all your data in the contracts through the lines, if you want to look at it at that level, as well as that overall contract level. And in the customer card as well, just go back into the customer card. And we go to customer. You can also get to the contracts and the lines through the customer card directly as well. So you can go straight into the contracts. That will open up the contract attached to that customer. Then you can just clear the filter, and you can get to all the contracts as well. And the same for the lines too. You just filter straight to the lines for that contract. So you've got that quick link through the customer card as well. The clients we've worked with so far, again, you've got your kind of audit trails that you can turn on and track. The clients that we've worked with this solution, they do that. So there's a few care home contract tables that you can track changes to. Obviously, you've got the approval workflow. The approval workflow is set up just to do it on the first time you set up a contract, not changes. So we've recommended to the clients that they use sort of audit trails and change logs just to track any changes made to the contracts after they're set up. You could have a workflow to do it on changes in the contract as well. That's something we can do. Obviously, if you're making lots and lots of changes, you may want to just prefer to use the change logs and track it that way. But yeah, anything is kind of possible, really. And that's kind of me done, really. That's the functionality. Obviously, it can be adapted and changed. This iteration I've shown you has gone through quite a lot of changes from the first time we did it. It was initially done for clients who just did monthly billing, but we've since adapted it to do the weekly, excluding bank holidays, all that kind of stuff, splitting the invoices. So we're constantly developing it. It's kind of it's always a work in progress because every client's got different requirements. So it does evolve, but it's evolved really well. We've made a lot of changes to it, and it's quite a smooth process, we've found. So yeah, I guess any questions, I suppose?
Yeah, we've got a few questions. Thanks for that, Ben. It was really good. The first question we have is, how long will it take to install and configure?
Okay, installation's very quick, probably literally 10-15 minutes just to install the extension. The setup doesn't take too long. As I showed you, there's only a few setup windows, so they don't take too long. The main thing is setting up the contracts, and that can take, well, how long's a piece of string? Depends how many contracts you need. In terms of training, probably a day's training and you'd be ready to go. So it's actually not a huge undertaking to install it and set it up and get it configured. So it's really down to, the biggest thing we found is every client's got different nuances. So for example, the weekly and the monthly off the same contract is one of the things that we've adapted, because the clients we've worked with, they do monthly and weekly and even hourly out of the same contract, and the way they want to split it. So that, but it can now take care of most things because we've adapted it so much. So yeah, in terms of, you're not talking a huge amount of time, a few days probably to get everything installed.
Great. And I think the second question kind of goes into what you just said, but can the solution be changed, adapted to different requirements?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's never going to be set in stone. It's always going to change, and it's changed a lot from the first time we did it. So most of the stuff I've shown you today wasn't there in the first iteration of this. Even things like, I mean, this particular version I'm showing you at the moment, everything you're seeing is named as per the last client that we worked with. So they didn't want it called resident. They wanted it called person in support, people with support, and local authority. Another client we've worked with, they're called resident and funder. So we can, things like that we can change, we can adapt anything really, add extra functionality. So yeah, it's pretty flexible. We've got a really good developer who put this together, and he's very fluid and good at changing things like that.
Great. And then we've got another question. What would the cost be? I think I'm going to cover that one. So thanks for the question. In terms of the cost, obviously, as Ben kind of mentioned, even though we've built out this extension and this piece of functionality, it's definitely not a one size fits all. There will be different companies that require different setup. So I think that probably the best and quickest answer would be just to set up a call with us, just to kind of go through how much of the standard solution would be a fit for your organization, and how much would be kind of additional change requests or amending the system to work for your requirements. And then based off of that, we can provide you with a quote for the implementation and any ongoing costs. Great. And then looks like the last question here is, how much experience do you have in the care home industry?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a few care homes under our umbrella, and they all use this. And we've got the first client was actually based in Ireland, and they're across all of Ireland, and we've actually implemented it in I don't know, 10-15 of their care homes, and I've actually got a project in the new year to do the rest of them. So that's gone across Ireland, and then we've got a couple in the UK using it as well. So you know, we're developing all the time with it. It's evolving all the time. It's a really smooth solution. You don't need one of the standard contract extensions that are out there that cost a lot more money. They could take a lot longer to configure. So yeah, it's something that we're pretty pleased with. And like I said, it's always developing. Even things like I showed you the invoice layouts. Again, those are ones that were built for the last current client that I'm working with. But again, things like that are easy to change, adapt as well. So yeah, it's been a really good fit for us, and we're hoping to obviously progress it even more. So yeah, you know, like I said, we've rolled it out now a few times, and it's gone, touch wood, it's gone very well. So
yeah, great. Well, thanks, Ben. That's all the questions we have for today. Thank you all so much for joining today's session. As I mentioned, if you have any more questions, or if you would like a kind of personalized session where we kind of talk through how the solution could be fit for your organization, please feel free to reach out to us and we can arrange that call. But yeah, look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day and speak soon.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.